Good evening, guys. Welcome to the product management session on demystifying product management with Amrish Bajaj. I am Deepam Jaiswal. I work as a product manager here at UpGrad. And for this session today, we have Mr. Amrish Bajaj, who is the group product head of HT Media. And prior to this, he had worked as a head of product at Jabong. And he has a very rich experience in this field of product management. And so how we'll structure this session is that first Amrish will take us through some of the basics of product management through his presentation, post which we will take some audience question wherein I just moderate the audience questions and Amrish can answer thereon. So over to you, Amrish.
Okay, thanks guys, and thanks for the kind introduction. I'll just want to put one more thing that I want to actually tell you guys a very small story about how really product management happened to me. I was obviously not trained, or the start of my career about 14 years back didn't start as a product manager. I was a software developer and a tester in working in Wipro in Bangalore. And my first twist with product management actually happened, and at that time I didn't know that I was doing product management. The term itself was new to me. Was when in 2009 I, along with a friend Abhishek, we developed a ride-sharing portal called easy2commute.com. And at that time, when you're doing your own idea or product, you don't think that you're doing product management or you're doing development or you're doing content. So that's the first time we ended up, we launched a ride-sharing portal, probably India's first ride-sharing portal, easy2commute.com. And I was basically the guy behind, what to build, broadly what the design looks like, what is the feature, how will people, find a carpool, how will they send a request, etc., etc. I think those were the beginnings of my practical hands-on product management work at a time when I didn't know that I was doing product management. So my so-called formal product management work started when I joined Paytm in 2012, where I was taking care of some part of their early stage recharge and bus ticketing products, as well as their interest in gaming. So I was managing product and a bit of digital marketing there. At Jabong, when I shifted, I was looking at the entire product management, specifically focusing on launch of mobile apps and all of that. So I mean, the interesting bit about my background, I feel, is that for a long period of time in my career, I was doing product management, and I didn't know that I was doing product management. Also, in early 2011-12, it was a new field. Hardly many online commerce companies were there. So now it's a much more mature field. There are specific job profiles in the industry, and I see a lot of interest in all of you guys, and that's why we are here talking about a subject which wasn't even heard of in the technology or internet circles about 4 to 5 years back. It's a flourishing area, requires a lot of hard work of people who want to get into it, and we'll come to know in a couple of slides from now, but yeah, it's also very rewarding and exciting. Okay, so these are some of the things I will be taking you through. There's not much in these slides. I'll try to walk you through, give some examples and my own experiences. I hope that will be useful to all of you. And I assume that a lot of you guys who are listening to this are already not into a formal product management role, but you guys are interested or aspire to do some bit of product management in your careers. I assume that. So I'll start from very basic things in my slides. Okay, so let's go to the first slide. So basically, let me try to, in fact, the topic of the presentation is demystifying product management. So here's a very interesting definition that I would like to put to a product manager. And in a very single small line, it is a product manager helps her or his team or company ship the right product to the audience. right? Now, I've tried to highlight four aspects or four responsibilities or the four keywords that you guys should look at carefully. One is that a product manager is not the one who's like a CEO, getting everything done or doing everything with his own hands. But he's a facilitator of a lot of things, especially what the business team wants to ship out, how the tech team works on shipping out. So that's the helping part of it. The next part is shipping, actually the delivery, and then what has to be shipped out is the right product. And to the audience, basically what audience has to be shipped out, has the product to be shipped out to.
Yeah.
If you look at these four keywords in a little more detail, is
Mm-hmm.
that a product manager does the following, right? Helps her team. So when we say helps our team, a product manager generally has a multi-team interaction within a large setup, like an e-commerce company or an online travel company. So the product manager works with the business team to help understand what's the business goal to achieve. Number two, once he understands the business problem, he needs to put a design to it or how the user interacts with it. So he works with the design team to actually get the design out. And finally, with the design and the business logic and the feature description, he works with the tech team to actually build out the product. Now, if you notice that while he's the guy or the girl known to be building out the product, actually the amount of interaction with different teams is quite high. So he is responsible for the end delivery, but he doesn't own every part of the product development life cycle, which gets me to point number two, which is ship. One of the things product manager really does or should do well is typically when you work with business folks, on one hand, the business folks actually want you to deliver the dream product or the dream sort of feature in as less time as possible on one end. But when you take that feature description to the tech, generally they would quote a timeline which is far more than what the business guys expect. So you are somewhere in the middle trying to negotiate both with the business to say that, okay, this is how we have to structure our product release to meet a business goal on one end. So you set the right expectations. And with tech, you kind of negotiate to get the product out in as lean time as possible, right? So because time is of prime importance when you talk of the internet product world. The third aspect is right product. Sorry, is somebody trying to say something?
No, that's perfectly fine.
Okay. The third bit which I highlighted in the statement about the definition of product manager is the fact that there's nothing like a right product, or there's nothing like a perfect product. A product is actually a journey. You iterate and meet a goal, and then you again iterate, get the next objective that needs to be achieved, and it has to finally uh, be there in the market in the hands of the consumer at the right time. Otherwise, there's no point, right? You may end up trying to reach perfection, but if it doesn't get to the market in time, then there's hardly a point of trying to reach that perfection. So you basically, in a product's roadmap, you break the entire roadmap into features which you time properly so that uh, you meet the intermediate business goals which a product is supposed to deliver, and not wait for the right product to be launched after, like, say, a couple of months, by the time your competition has overtaken you. The fourth bit is that the audience. I think one of the important things product manager should understand is that how your audience, what your audience needs, and uh, how your audience is going to use your product. That defines how you basically communicate. So whenever you launch a new feature in a product, there's an important bit about how do you make the user use your new feature, right? Because a feature built which is not discoverable, or it is not used by the end user too much, is a dead or a flop idea, right? So if you have faith in your feature and you have put in your efforts, you also have to think about your audience, how you're going to market or educate the user about a new feature that you've done in the product, right? And as we go later into the slides, I have a slide about how a great product actually doesn't need too much of marketing budgets to promote itself. So the marketing or the discovery of the feature, a new feature or a product, has to be built in the product itself. So the product should basically speak about itself rather than needing paid marketing or a lot of external PR to actually get the user to use it. I also wanted to clarify what a product manager actually does not do, and that's actually a sort of myth that I would like to clarify. Number one, the product manager doesn't code. He's not the programmer who's actually developing the code. Uh, he or she actually doesn't create the product design, the end design. What he, however, does is that he specifies or specs out the product flow, what comes first, then the next step, and then what screen the user should get, and then what step he takes. So basically a flow chart or the product flow, which then the designer obviously details it out, makes it pixel perfect, puts the color scheme in place. Number three, a product manager doesn't actually uh, run marketing campaigns. However, the product manager is involved with the marketing team in helping them build out a marketing plan about something new that has happened in the product, or an app launch, or an app update. So, for example, very small thing. Uh, so, for example, the product manager should be very much involved whenever an app is being released, from the viewpoint of what goes into the app description, what are the release notes, what are the screenshots, etc. So, because that's a showcase of your app, and that influences a user to download or not download your app. So what features you want to highlight, etc. So in some senses, the product manager is also a marketing and copywriter kind of a guy who actually gets down the detail of writing the marketing communication. But when it comes to running campaigns, Facebook campaigns to run installs, etc., 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 he's not the guy who's sitting on the Facebook dashboard, setting up bids, uploading creatives. All of that he doesn't do. The last thing that the product manager does not do is run day-to-day business operations. But what the product manager does is facilitate a system, uh, or a sort of uh, uh, a kind of a software, or a product which helps the business teams run their operations more efficiently. But he's not the guy who's actually running, let's say, the operational bit. Yeah, he's supporting the operations team with a product or with a system with which they can run at a fast pace and they can scale. So what it takes to be a product manager, I think a lot of people have this question who are aspiring product managers. And as I put it in the last couple of slides, he's basically he or she is at the intersection of three things. One is the understanding of UX. Now, UX is not only about using Adobe Photoshop to make a design. UX is about the complete experience. What is the emotion of the user when he or she is using your app or using your website? So that part of it, and based on that emotion, building out a product flow or a flow chart, and in many cases actually building up some mock-ups to help the business folks as well as the design folks as well as the tech folks to understand that what you are trying to achieve with the product. That bit of broader understanding of the user experience has to be there in the product manager. Uh, uh, and then the other bit that some bit the product manager should understand is technology, right? And I'll just explain what I really mean by what part of technology. While on the previous slide I said he needn't code, but there are other aspects of tech that the product manager needs to have good grasp on. The third bit that the product guy needs to be good at is understanding business problems and the ability to convert business problems into a product feature. So at the center of this sort of Venn diagram is where the product manager is actually sitting, and those are actually the skills that are expected when generally we interview candidates for prospective product managers. So again, I've tried to detail out what I really mean by UX, tech, and business, the three circles in the last slide. Uh, an understanding of UX is basically the ability to build flowcharts or user flow diagrams, which is exactly the sequencing of steps the user needs to take in your app to reach an end goal. What is also for example, when I sort of interview product managers, I do expect some handle on using some of the mockups tool, or even if you don't know some mockups tool, you should be able to sketch out what you think on a piece of paper. That's also good enough, because when you explain somebody an idea about how your product will work, let's say to a business guy or even to your product head or the tech guy, putting it simply in words seems too theoretical. The moment you're able to put it on a piece of paper, then the understanding is much, much faster. And it's a very, very valued skill, actually. Number two is about what kind of tech understanding the product manager is expected to have. I would put it like moderate to moderate level of understanding, especially in three different areas within technology. One is the architecture part of it, how your application is architected, what is there in the back end, what is there in the front end, what is there in the middle layer, how what is expected out of the API that you build, so that you manage the product lifecycle really well, right? The understanding of what has to be static, dynamic, and in this I like to actually refer a term which is not purely coming out from the technology word, is the systems understanding. So in a large application, let's say in a payment app or an e-commerce app, what are the various systems? How do they talk to each other? What parameters or variables do they exchange? So that bit of understanding is really required and expected out of a product manager. Uh, the next bit is obviously product development life cycle. So the entire process of uh, business analysis to basically developing a flowchart, to a wireframe, to a design, to a product requirement documentation, as well as then doing the basically the discussion with the tech to explain what needs to be done, is a process that the product manager should be very thorough with, or is expected to pick up once he or she starts doing the job of a product manager. The other bit, the last bit is around performance is a very critical factor. The speed at which your app loads or your website opens, the size of your app, all these parameters really become quite critical. And so it's not about code optimization again. It's about where do you where do you take a trade-off between performance and feature richness. That's the point the product manager needs to really understand, right? uh, and basically revolves around the levers, not actually the code optimization. The last bit, he has to be able to wear the cap of a business guy, whether you're solving a supply chain problem, or you're solving, let's say, a call center or a customer care kind of a problem, right? What are the drivers of a particular business unit, or what is the end goal or objective uh, the business unit or the business manager is trying to achieve? And clubbed with that, how does the user basically interact with your product so that you also meet the user goal? So for example, let's say somebody who's heading CRM in an e-commerce company, his main concern would be that, hey, how do I reduce my cost of customer care, right? Now, uh, the product manager, while solving the problem of controlling the customer care cost, also has to see that he doesn't do anything which lowers the confidence or the retention of the user, because with a brute force you could end up actually removing a lot of customer care features that are built into the app, but by doing that the customer is not happy. So you try to marry the business problem at hand with what the end consumer wants. So you are like the voice of consumer within an organization, right? Uh, and again, while you understand the business goal to be achieved, uh, you have to be a problem solver and have the ability to convert a business goal into actually a product feature, right? Uh, as you know, uh, yeah, one second, it went into a screensaver mode. Yeah, so you have to be a problem solver fundamentally. Uh, uh, this slide I find particularly interesting is that, how do you reach the level of what feature you want to develop? How do you prioritize? So it's like an inverted pyramid, as I would like to call it. There's a vision at the top, which typically the founders or the CEOs have, that, I want to make it very easy for every Indian in this country to be able to pay for a good or service anywhere he or she is. Now, that's kind of a vision that a Paytm or MobiKwik or whatever payment kind of startup would have in their mind. From that, you actually come up with sort of business plan. So, okay, so this is my vision. So, what's my plan? How am I going to do it over the next couple of years? Which kind of customer segment I'll touch first? What kind of merchants I will touch first? What are the services I'm going to provide? From there, you read a product plan. This is where actually the product manager and the product team starts jumping in, that here's the vision, here's the plan. Now, what's the product plan to back up or to execute the whole business plan, right? And from a product plan, basically you further break it down into various features. So I'm gonna launch, let's say, a recharge service first, and then I'll add other bill payments, and slowly I'll build a wallet, and after that I'll start doing online payments, and after that I'll do offline payments. So basically, from a product plan, you come out with individual features. Actually, the statements that I'm making about wallet and recharge are still actually not at a feature level. They are actually at a product plan level. But you go micro and micro to actually pinpoint what feature, what part of the year, what part of the month I'm going to work on sequentially, and that then becomes the action plan for your tech team.
Hmm.
Uh, I always, I always have this thing in my mind that, actually great products do not need too much of marketing, and that's a belief I personally carry. A good product speaks for itself, and you don't need to spend crores to get an app download or uh, to get a traction of your product. If you really built it well and think of virality and think of network effects within the product. So I mean, just as an example, WhatsApp. Again, it's one of the stellar apps. I mean, it was acquired for $16 billion by Facebook, and at that time, I think I read their founders' statement once. They had, in the 5-6 years since WhatsApp existence, all they had spent on marketing and app downloads was $100, right? So that's the power of the product and virality. From my own experience of working with Paytm, I would say till the time they reached 10 lakh recharges a day, which already was the largest number of online transactions, they had actually spent. I mean, obviously they had spent on marketing, on all the campaigns, but it was far less compared to Flipkart and Snapdeal. And I'm talking of my time in 2013 or so. So basically, the gist is that a product manager, while he's developing a feature, while he's specking out, while she's doing the design, she also has at the back of her mind that I have to build a product that speaks for itself. It motivates users to themselves explore features, tell their friends, and build more out of virality and word of mouth than out of spending loads of rupees on Facebook installs and all of that, right? So I think that's one thing. That's why I said that a marketer, a product manager also has to be 15 to 20% marketer in his or her job profile. This again is one of my favorite slides. So guys, let me put a very blunt statement to you that life of a product manager is not easy. It's a very hard job, and the reason is that, as I mentioned in my previous slides, that the product manager has to work with so many stakeholders, and at times you have to push back on somebody's expectations, and you constantly do the negotiation and expectation setting kind of part. And especially as a So basically what I mean to say is that, and especially if this is going to be a first job, then obviously you're not in fully for what kind of different business heads or business manager you're going to meet. So it's tough on, it's also a personality thing. Some people are able to negotiate easily, but I would say negotiation is a very important part, and a bit of people management and expectation management is an important part of a product manager's life. Number two is that you actually have to know a bit of everything, because if you do not have grasp of at least the basics of, let's say, the design or the technology or the business, then you don't get the kind of respect, and people don't want to value your time or value you as a professional. So you have to know a bit of everything, and that's the hard part. Thirdly, look, guys, you'll have all the accountability in the world that, boss, the app or the website has to work perfectly fine. But the fact is, actually, you don't have formal authority to get things done, from in most cases with the technology or the business guy, but still you carry a lot of accountability on your shoulders. And the last thing, which is like I call it somewhat a thankless kind of a job of a product manager, that if the business does well, the business folks do tend to get a lot of credit, and people tend to kind of forget that, hey, look, it's a product manager who thought of how to build a feature. He made it so smooth, so seamless, etc. But if the business doesn't do well, and then you do get to hear from everybody. Yeah. So you have to carry that off and not take it too seriously, right? Because at the end of the day that you've worked hard, you thought for the user, at the same time you balance the business objectives. So you just have to be aware of some of these challenges of being a product manager. I'm actually at the end of my slides, and these are some of the interesting links that you can follow. You can subscribe to the newsletters, etc., etc. You can follow their Twitter handles, and especially I personally like Medium a lot. There are a lot of very smart product and tech and UX folks writing real life experiences on what they did in their jobs, etc. Very nice place to actually track. And if you're looking at some specific product areas within e-commerce, there's a site called bemar.com. It talks of specific issues, how to optimize search for e-commerce payments and all of that stuff. Bright Talk is an interesting, just like UpGrad, Bright Talk is also an interesting place where there are a lot of live webinars. I don't think they have a lot of India-specific content, but they do capture wide business areas. And if you're interested in learning about wireframing and prototyping kind of thing, there are certain tools which I've mentioned at the end, Balsamiq, UXPin, Exor. Envision app is an interesting tool which is used to make almost like real life prototypes in case you want to show somebody how an app interaction works. So you can build basic interactions even with normal JPEGs. So it's an interesting, quick to do prototyping tool. And obviously in the end, there is Google to kind of help you and, discover great content about all the product manager areas. So guys, that's I'm through with my slides. I hope it is useful, and I'm open to any questions.
Thanks a lot, Amrish. I think this was a really, really nice gist of what a product manager does, what are the various roles and responsibilities. So we're open to taking some questions, and I have a bunch of questions with me from which the users had submitted. So the first question is.
So Adam, do I switch back to the Hangout mode, or are you going to speak the question?
Yeah, you and Amrish, you can stick to the presentation mode.
Okay.
And I'll just be sharing the questions to you.
Go ahead. Okay.
Yeah. So the first question is, how does the product management? What is the product management landscape in India, and how does that ecosystem per se compare to that of the Silicon Valley in the US?
So obviously, the first internet companies globally began in the Silicon Valley: Google, Yahoo, MSN, and AOL, and all of that in the early 2000s. So definitely, in terms of maturity or understanding or the domain of product management, it's a far more mature market there. And also, what is expected out of a product manager is fairly far more clear. But starting 2011-12, when we had the starting of the Flipkart, Ola, Snapdeal, Paytm, and all of that, I think that's when uh, product management as a subject started picking up, and companies or founders understanding that a product manager is really needed to manage the product. That appreciation started happening. And I think we are at a stage when now it's a fairly mature market in India as well, and companies have a fairly decent strength of product manager, and they're always looking for good product managers in the market, whether it's all the e-commerce companies or the Olas of the world. Of late, there's a lot of understanding in the traditional old media houses and traditional banks, etc., like even the ICICIs of the world, that there is a specific and very important role a product manager plays. So now even the older companies are waking up to the need of a product manager. One of the fundamental difference I find, again, I have not worked in the Silicon Valley personally, but from a bunch of people who have worked there or who have worked with product managers from there, is that if you look at the kind of internet companies we have, and while what they are in Silicon Valley, the fundamental difference is the type of problem that we're trying to solve. And if you look at a lot of problems, or most of the internet companies in India are basically trying to uh, basically get offline businesses or offline processes or offline activities onto the online domain. So there's a huge bit of operational or the operations or on ground part of it, right? So which is different from, let's say, Google or Facebook. All they're trying to solve is problems which are, I mean, if you ask me what problem Facebook is solving, I mean, you can't actually define. I mean, they're helping you pass your time better. I mean, and connecting people, right? So it's a pure software and online kind of a product where the product manager keeps on optimizing the UX or the feature and all of that. With Google also, it's fundamentally an online kind of a company which does search, which does YouTube. So there's not much of offline process or offline operational integration that the product manager needs to think of. In India, for example, classic case of Uber. When Uber came to India, their first relation was that, hey, look, not everybody has a credit card here. Not everybody saves a credit card on third-party apps. Not uh, RBI has a rule of two-factor authentication. So when they encountered all of these problems and the fact that most Indians pay by cash, obviously now the trend is significantly changing with the Paytms of the world, etc. So they had to deal with very different problems, which were nothing to do with the app itself, but how the Indian mentality or the how the Indians think and all of that, right? Now these are problems possibly they never faced in US, right? So they had to build out specific product flows just for accepting cash. And I think, in my personal opinion, uh, the first time they enabled cash in the Uber app, it was a very bad flow, which they iterated and improved over time. But Ola got cash acceptance right in almost the first go, and that's the difference between somebody who's initially they were trying to Uber was trying to solve problems from the US headquarters, the same product managers who haven't encountered the kind of problems they are in India. So they were trying to think of from a lens of sitting there in US. Obviously, over time, Uber realized that they need to have people who understand Indian problems and on ground situation. So they have started building. Most of the companies, including Facebook, Google, Uber, now have started building product management and tech teams out of India, because they understand that problem solved for Indians will really benefit them because of a huge market. So the kind of problems you solve, and the second big difference I particularly felt is that US and all of these market began as basically web companies. They were trying to solve problems on the browser, while India was or China was a mobile first, more than China actually. India is a mobile first internet company. So the kind of things users expected or designing for the mobile screen was acting, not only design, what use cases you will solve from the app or the mobile browser was something that was very India specific. So basically, I feel, and that's actually a big difference between the first, the IT wave, all the Wipro and Infosys. So what the fundamental difference between IT companies like TCS, Wipro, and Infosys and all of that, to, let's say, Flipkart, Paytm, Snapdeal, and all of that. Now, both are developing softwares, right? The fundamental difference is TCS, Infosys, Wipro did not build a software that they would use themselves. They would build it for somebody else. The user was somebody else. The user was defining the requirement. Now here, you are operating in a market in which you actually own the user. You are close to the user, physically, mentally, right? You are solving the problems, or the product manager is trying to solve the problem which he or she faces in a. The product manager of Uber also takes an Uber every day to work. The product manager of payments in Flipkart also has to do cash on delivery. So he's closer to the problem, which really helps. And that's fundamentally how the wave has basically shifted from pure software services more to a product that is developed, and hence the need to have product managers who are closer to the problem statement or to the user. So that's, I think, and by the way, some of the things that I personally think our e-commerce apps and our payment apps are definitely far better designed, and they work far more successfully compared to many of the US products. So it's no longer that Silicon Valley is at a pedestal and Indian companies are just following or aping, right? So we are developing indigenous products which are actually better in many senses, and all the senses actually, compared to many of the mobile products coming out of the Silicon Valley or any part of the world. Yeah.
Yeah. Moving on to the next question. How does product management vary in a smaller company like a startup as compared to the bigger companies? Could be the Amazon or Microsoft or Google or something like that.
I mean, till a company actually doesn't raise its first fund and all of that, product managers aren't even there in startups. Because see, actually the founder himself is a product manager, right? Because if you are in a pure internet or a mobile startup, right, it's basically the product that you begin with, right? So the founder himself is playing all the role of a product manager. And the other very big difference is that in a smaller company, you almost own the entire product, like the entire app, right? One or two of the product people will own the entire product, the various features and the various sort of functions, right? As the company grows bigger, each part of each screen of the app becomes a different product in itself, and the homepage is managed by one product manager. The cataloging is managed by another one. Payments is managed by another one. The supply chain product part is handled by another one. So the basic difference is that in a smaller company, you do own many more things as a product manager, while when the company grows, and a single product is broken into many mini products, and each mini product is run by a product manager with his or her own KPIs or targets to meet. Yeah. So yeah.
So one other question which our students sent us is, what's the growth progression like in a PM's career? So if you can elaborate a bit on that.
So the typical product teams, by the way, are generally very small. They don't run into hundreds or something of that sort. They're generally small companies, and a typical ratio of a product manager to number of developers could be 1:7 to 1:10. So if there are 100 engineers in a company, there'll possibly be 8 to 10 product managers only. So in terms of strength, which also means that they're not too much of hierarchy in product management teams, right? So you, even as you grow, you don't have like an army of people reporting into you, etc., etc. So you begin with like a associate product manager, at which stage you are basically handling smaller problems, but you do own some of the other feature of the product, right? But handling on a little smaller features, lesser impact, or something that is in terms of the KPI or the goal is a little smaller or early stage, and you typically work under the guidance of a product manager, which is like the next level. The product manager generally owns a larger portfolio of the product, right? So, for example, uh, you know there could be a product manager for the payments part of an e-commerce business, right? And under the product manager there could be one or two or three associate product managers, while the product manager could be overall responsible for a great payment experience. The individual parts of, let's say, COD could have one associate product manager, credit cards and net banking could have another product manager, and let's say if there is a wallet also, wallet could have another product manager. So each product manager then works on specific, like how do I make COD very, very smooth? How do I make sure that the reconciliation of cash happens? How do I avoid fraud and all of that, right? Within credit card, somebody would think of problems like how do I encourage people to save their cards and all of that stuff. And then the wallet guy will think of, what kind of wallet integration I'll do, etc., etc. So, and then beyond the product manager, then there's senior product managers. Uh, uh, Above that, you generally start owning things at a and like at what designation you own what is a factor of how large the company is. So uh, so some companies have like quite nice designation like director of product management, but if the scale of the company is too large, you are actually not even managing the one full part of the product. Like you may be a director of product management, but you only handle COD as a payment mode kind of a thing. Again, if COD is what gets you $1 billion a year, then it is worth optimizing that flow and have one person look at it dedicatedly, so that even a 5% improvement in COD collections is worth 50 crores, right? So it's for the company, it's justified to have one guy looking at COD and improving the cash flow or the bottom line by 50 crores. So it's a business equation that is like uh, a business sort of equation that justifies having a senior guy to look at one part of the whole product.
Yeah. So, yeah, Amrish, we'll be taking a couple of more questions after which we'll close the session. So, here's the first one. As a PM, how do I ensure that I communicate extremely well with the other teams? Because that seems to be a really major part of the whole job.
I mean, I think the moment you start empathizing the problems of the other guy, the communication just opens up, and that's why you you have to wear the hat of a business guy or the marketer, whatever problem that he or she has, and then speak his or her language to because you have to be a friend of his, and say that, hey, I'm helping you trying to solve your problem via product intervention. So you have to be sort of very proactive in your communication, and and obviously, needless to say, it does come by experience. And once you start, you'll obviously understand the importance of it, and then you'll start communicating more and communicating more effectively. So yeah, that's how you'll do it.
Yeah. So yeah, coming to the last question, I feel this is the one question which will help a lot of our viewers make a decision. So how is a typical day in the life of a product manager? So yeah.
So generally, uh, in a software development cycle, and typically a lot of companies work on an agile product development mode. Your day actually, obviously, begins with you know with stand-ups which you have with the tech team. So if you're building a feature and the tech team is working on it, so typically you try to do it as first thing in the morning. You huddle up with the tech team. Everybody talks about what they did yesterday, and you know, you try to unblock things which the team has faced, uh, and you know, any issues that the tech team encountered and any clarification they need. So it starts with 15 20 minutes, half an hour kind of a stand up with the tech team every day, because you have to work extremely closely with the tech team. You're almost part of the tech team actually, without actually even without coding, but you're almost part of that team. uh, and that also gets the tech team sort of up to speed on, you know, what needs to be done today and all of that. uh, the next part obviously is that you typically, if you're working on a feature, or you engage a lot with the designer. In some companies, designers are part of the product team, like they were in Jabong. But in certain companies, there's a different kind of a team. So whatever feature you're working with, you engage with the designer to help him or her understand that, you know, this is what you're expecting out of the product feature, and you know, this is what I'm expecting out of the design. So you work with them. Uh, you engage with like a business stakeholder and understand his or her problems, or if you have sort of you know, documented uh, a business problem as a product feature, you kind of discuss and, you know, share it with the business person. Yeah, and you take his or her comments, and you incorporate it. A lot of the time of the product manager actually goes in documentation, because the documentation has to be impeccable. It's also a record of what conversations have gone, and also important for the tech or the developers to actually exactly know how the product is expected to work. So a good amount of time actually goes in documentation as well. And I think whatever product area a product manager owns, he or she keenly looks at how it is performing. So, you know, you look at Omniture or you look at Google Analytics to see that, hey, what's the payment success rate, for example, how many transactions failed, what kind of payments failed, did credit card payments fail more or debit card payments fail more, did net banking fail more, which banks failed more, why did they fail, what are the error codes, etc., etc. And yeah, so I mean, these are a bunch of things you do, and depending on what is the priority, you tend to spend more time on that particular thing. But that's how the life of a product manager is.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Amrish. I think there was a really, really insightful session right from the presentation to the questions. I'm really sorry if we couldn't take some of the questions because of the paucity of time, but I'm sure you guys gained a lot from the session. And I can just not stop thanking Amrish about the depth in which he went into and explain how the life of a product manager is, what he does, and so on. So thanks a lot for tuning in, guys, and keep yourself.
Thank you for calling me. It was lovely interacting. I mean, it
Yeah.
was a faceless interaction, but I hope uh, I hope everybody gained something or the other about from this. Yeah. So thanks for calling me. Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Amrish, and thank you guys for tuning in. And stay tuned for more PM webinars. And yeah, thank you. Bye.
Okay. Bye. Bye.